I am Jesus, and I am speaking to you now. There is a kind of fear that begins before any bad news actually arrives. You see the phone on the table, the unread message, the patient portal, the envelope, the missed call, the meeting on the calendar, or the name on the screen, and your mind races ahead of the facts. Before you know what has happened, fear has already written 3 endings, and every one of them hurts. Listen carefully to this first truth. Uncertainty is not the same thing as disaster. The fact that you do not know the answer yet does not mean the worst answer has already been chosen. Fear can make an unfinished sentence feel like a final verdict, but it is still an unfinished sentence. There are 3 questions underneath this pressure. Is your mind telling the truth when it says the future is already ruined because it feels uncertain? What do you do when the thing you fear really could happen? And how do you take the next hard step when certainty refuses to come first? You may be afraid that the test will confirm what you do not want to hear. You may be waiting for a decision about work, money, family, a relationship, a legal matter, or someone you love. You may know that difficult news is genuinely possible. I will not ask you to pretend that it is impossible. I will not call denial faith. I will show you how to face what you do not know without letting fear decide what the future means before the facts arrive. The answer does not begin with becoming fearless. It begins with refusing to make fear your narrator. Right now, notice what fear has been trying to do for you. It may be trying to protect you from surprise. It may be telling you that if you imagine every painful outcome in advance, you will somehow be less shocked if one of them happens. It may be whispering that constant rehearsal is preparation, that worry is vigilance, and that if you stop thinking about the threat for even a moment, you will be careless. That strategy feels responsible because it is active. Your mind is doing something. It is scanning, predicting, checking, comparing, replaying, and preparing arguments for a conversation that may never happen. But activity is not the same thing as wisdom. A mind can be extremely busy while moving farther away from truth. You have probably felt the body join the story. Your jaw tightens, your stomach changes, your shoulders rise. You read the same message again. You search one more time. You ask one more person what they think. You try to sleep, but your mind opens the case again, as if the answer might appear through exhaustion. This is the deeper tension. Part of you believes you are not allowed to move until fear disappears. Another part believes imagining disaster is the same thing as preparing wisely. Those 2 beliefs can trap you between paralysis and over-control. You wait for a calm feeling before you act, but your attempts to force certainty keep feeding the very fear you are waiting to lose. I want to separate 2 things that fear keeps blending together: preparation and possession. Preparation asks, what is actually known? What is my next responsibility? What information do I need? Who is qualified to help? What can I do if the answer is difficult? Possession says, I must mentally live through every possible ending now. I must feel the pain before it arrives. I must carry tomorrow in my body today. You were never asked to possess every possible future. There is a reason your mind reaches for control when news is pending. The unknown removes your ability to plan with precision. You cannot solve what has not been confirmed. That gap can feel unbearable. So the mind tries to create certainty by predicting. It would rather hold a terrible answer than no answer at all, because a terrible answer at least feels definite. But imagined certainty is not real safety. If you decide in advance that the future is ruined, you may feel briefly protected from disappointment. You can tell yourself, I already know how this ends. That gives you the illusion of control. Yet the price is high. You begin suffering from a conclusion you do not actually possess. David once prayed, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Notice the order in Psalm 56 verse 3. He did not say, when I stop being afraid, then I will trust. He named fear honestly and turned while fear was present. That is a mature kind of faith. It does not require you to erase the feeling before you take the next faithful step. Fear can be present without being in charge. That distinction matters because you may have been judging yourself for still feeling afraid. You may think the trembling means you are failing. You may think the tightness in your chest means your faith is weak. You may think that if you truly trusted me, you would feel calm before opening the message. returning the call, attending the appointment, asking the question, or receiving the answer. But courage is not the absence of physical fear. Courage is the decision to move toward truth, responsibility, and love, while fear is still making noise. I am not asking you to enjoy uncertainty. I am not asking you to call possible loss good. I am not asking you to smile at a risk that deserves attention. I am asking you not to hand fear the pen and then call what it writes reality. And even when the feared outcome is possible, your prediction usually includes more than the event itself. It adds meanings. If this happens, I will not be able to cope. I will be alone. Nothing good can remain. I will make the wrong decision. I will disappoint everyone. My life will never have steadiness again. Do you see the difference? A possible event becomes a complete identity, a complete future, and a complete verdict. That is where fear stops warning and starts governing. A warning can be useful. It says, pay attention, gather facts, ask a qualified question, make a plan, bring support, set aside time, prepare your documents, write down what you need to remember. A governing fear says, keep rehearsing until you feel certain. Keep checking until your body gives you permission to rest. Keep asking until someone promises an outcome no honest person can promise. One leads to action, the other leads to captivity. So here is a simple question I want you to use when the fear rises. Is this thought helping me prepare for reality, or is it making me live inside a prediction? Do not answer quickly, test it. If the thought leads you to make one needed call, that may be preparation. If it leads you to make the same search 20 times, that may be rehearsal. If it reminds you to bring a trusted person to an appointment, that may be preparation. If it makes you ask 5 people for reassurance and reject every answer that does not remove uncertainty, that may be rehearsal. If it helps you write 3 questions for a professional, that may be preparation. If it makes you build 10 imaginary conversations before any facts arrive, that may be rehearsal. Your mind may object, but if I stop rehearsing, I will be unprepared. No, you may be less exhausted. Exhaustion is not evidence that you have prepared well. Sometimes it is evidence that you have been trying to perform tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. You can prepare a place for the truth without pretending you already know what the truth will be. This is where trust becomes practical. Trust is not a mood that floats above your circumstances. Trust can look like opening the portal even though your hands are unsteady. It can look like answering the call instead of postponing it for another day because you are waiting to feel brave. It can look like asking, "Can you explain what this means?" rather than searching for a dramatic interpretation online. It can look like writing down the next step instead of demanding the whole plan at once. Take the hard step while allowing fear to be present. That may sound small, but it directly challenges the old strategy. The old strategy says, first get rid of fear, then act. I am telling you, act wisely while fear is present, and let truth, not fear, teach you what comes next. There is another cost of letting fear write the ending that you may not have connected to the bad news itself. Fear changes what you notice. When you are convinced that something terrible is coming, your attention becomes selective. You notice every delay as evidence. Every neutral message sounds ominous. Every facial expression becomes a clue. Every ache becomes a confirmation. Every silence feels like a hidden verdict. Your nervous system is trying to protect you by scanning for danger, but scanning can become a filter. The more you look only for signs that your fear is correct, the more certain the fear feels. Then the feeling becomes proof for the thought, and the thought intensifies the feeling. That loop can become powerful. You feel afraid, so the future must be bad. You assume the future is bad, so your body becomes more afraid. Your body becomes more afraid, so you believe the thought more strongly. But a feeling can be real without being a prophecy. You do not need to insult your feelings to correct their authority. You can say, "This fear is real in my body, but it does not know the outcome." That sentence creates room. Room to ask for facts. Room to breathe before responding. Room to choose who gets access to your attention. Room to notice when your mind has left the present and begun living in a future that has not arrived. Room to remember that even a hard fact is not the same thing as every frightening meaning attached to it. If the news is difficult, you will need energy for reality. Do not spend all of that energy trying to survive imagined versions of reality first. This is why I want you to become more careful with checking. Checking can be useful when there is something new to learn, but checking can also become an attempt to purchase certainty. You refresh the inbox. You reopen the app. You search symptoms again. You examine the wording of a message. You monitor someone's tone. You ask, "Are you sure?" after you have already received the answer available right now. For a moment, checking reduces anxiety. That relief teaches your brain, "Checking saved me." Then the anxiety returns, and you feel driven to check again. Soon the behavior that was supposed to help you feel safe becomes one of the things keeping the fear alive. The same can happen with reassurance. You call someone you trust and ask what they think. There is nothing wrong with seeking support, but if you are not asking for wisdom and are instead asking another person to guarantee that your feared outcome will not happen, you are placing an impossible burden on them. They cannot give you certainty they do not have. Wise support sounds different. Sit with me while I open this. Help me write down what the doctor says. Can you help me think through the options after I know the facts? I am anxious, and I do not want to spiral alone. Can you remind me what is actually known? That kind of support does not feed the illusion of prediction. It helps you stay present. I want you to hear this with compassion. You have not been rehearsing disaster because you love pain. You have been doing it because some part of you believes anticipation can reduce vulnerability. Maybe you have been surprised by bad news before. Maybe an ordinary day once changed quickly. Maybe you learned that if you stay alert enough, you might avoid being caught off guard again. Maybe uncertainty awakens memories your present situation did not create. If that is true, your fear is not foolish. It is trying to protect an old wound. But a protector can become overprotective. A smoke alarm is useful when there is smoke. It becomes harmful when it screams every time you make toast. Your mind may have learned to treat possibility as certainty because possibility once became pain. That history deserves care. It also deserves a new way of responding. You can honor what you have survived without letting the past decide what every unknown means. This is one reason casting your anxiety on God is not a decorative spiritual phrase. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7 says, "To cast your anxieties on him, because he cares for you." The movement is important. Anxiety is not denied. It is transferred. To cast something is to stop clutching it as if your grip is what keeps the world together. You can say to my Father, "I do not know what this message will say. I do not know what the test will show. I do not know what the meeting will decide. I do not know how this conversation will go. I do know that I am carrying outcomes I have not been given." That is not passivity. After you release the outcome, you can still make the appointment. You can still ask the question. You can still prepare documents. You can still seek treatment, counsel, financial guidance, legal advice, or mental health support where appropriate. You can still protect yourself and the people you love. Surrender does not remove responsibility. It removes the fantasy that you can control reality by worrying hard enough. There is a difference between responsibility and omniscience. Responsibility asks you to respond to what is yours. Omniscience would require you to know every outcome in advance. You were not created to carry the second. That means part of your peace will come not from receiving all the information you want, but from accepting the boundary of what you can know right now. This can feel like loss because certainty feels valuable, yet false certainty is expensive. It charges interest in sleep, attention, body tension, relationships, and decision quality. Think about what happens after hours of mental rehearsal. Are you more able to listen carefully? Are you more patient with the people around you? Are you more likely to remember instructions? Are you more able to distinguish one fact from another? Often, no. Fear says, think about it more, so you can perform better. But past a certain point, more thinking produces less clarity. This is where Isaiah 26 verse 3 gives you another layer. The passage speaks of a mind kept in steadfast peace, because it is stayed on God and trusts in Him. This is not a command to never feel anxious. It is a picture of where the mind returns. Steadiness is practiced through return. Your mind wanders into prediction. You return to what is known. Your body tightens. You return to your breath, the room, the task. You imagine the worst sentence. You return to the question you can actually ask. You demand certainty. You return to trust. You check again. You return to the limit you chose. Peace is not always a continuous emotional state. Sometimes it is the repeated act of coming back. You may have thought you were failing because you had to come back 100 times. But coming back is the practice. A child learning to walk does not fail because balance must be regained. The returning is part of learning steadiness. Your mind can learn this too. Create a boundary around the behaviors that feed uncertainty. Decide when you will check for updates and when you will not. If an urgent response is truly required, make the boundary fit reality. But if you are refreshing because your anxiety wants another temporary dose of relief, let there be a limit. You could say, I will check at these 2 reasonable times. Or I will wait for the notification instead of reopening the portal every few minutes. Or I will search only after I have a confirmed term from a qualified professional. Or I will ask 1 trusted person for support, not 10 people for predictions. A boundary gives your attention somewhere to stand. It also reveals something important. When you reduce checking, fear may get louder at first. Do not misread that increase as proof the boundary is wrong. Sometimes anxiety protests when a familiar control strategy is interrupted. It says, "See, you are more afraid. Go back." But the goal of the boundary is not immediate comfort. The goal is to teach your mind that uncertainty can be survived without compulsive rehearsal. Now I want you to notice another false equation. Certainty equals safety. Certainty can feel safe, but some certainties are painful. Uncertainty can feel unsafe, but some uncertain periods are simply incomplete. Your body does not always make that distinction automatically. It may treat, "I do not know," as, "I am in danger right now." Sometimes that reaction needs more than a devotional reminder. Persistent or severe anxiety can benefit from qualified mental health support. Seeking that support is not a contradiction of prayer. A therapist, counselor, physician, or other qualified professional can help you understand patterns, learn tools, and address symptoms that are interfering with sleep, work, relationships, or daily functioning. Do not make spiritual shame another burden. You can trust my Father and make an appointment. You can pray and learn grounding skills. You can seek scripture and evidence-based care. You can ask for help and still be courageous. If anxiety has become persistent or severe, one of your within the next day actions can be identifying 1 qualified mental health resource. You do not have to solve the entire process immediately. Find 1 real option. Save the number. Check your insurance directory if that applies. Ask a trusted professional for a referral. Use the next available step. Faith does not need to compete with wise care. And if the feared news involves a medical, legal, financial, or other specialized matter, ask qualified people for guidance in that domain. Do not let generalized fear force you into generalized advice. The right question for the right person can reduce confusion without pretending to erase uncertainty. This is a turning point. Up to now, you may have believed the main problem was the bad news you might receive. And yes, the possible news matters. I will never minimize it. But there is a second future being decided before the news arrives. One future is shaped by fear as the definition of faithfulness. In that future, being responsible means staying on alert. Love means imagining every way people could be hurt. Preparation means exhausting yourself. Wisdom means predicting. Faith means trying to feel certain. The other future is shaped by steadiness. In that future, responsibility means doing the next true thing. Love means being present with people, instead of mentally abandoning them for imagined emergencies. Preparation means gathering what is useful and stopping when the useful work is done. Wisdom means respecting limits. Faith means trusting while the answer is incomplete. Both futures may contain uncertainty. Only one requires you to surrender your whole life to it. This is why the question is bigger than, will the news be bad? The deeper question is, Who gets to define faithfulness while I wait? Fear will define faithfulness as total vigilance. I define faithfulness as presence, truth, courage, wise action, and trust. You can choose steadiness without knowing the result. Perhaps the hard step in front of you is opening the message. Perhaps it is returning the call. Perhaps it is going to the appointment. Perhaps it is asking the question you have delayed because you are afraid of the answer. Perhaps it is telling someone, I am scared, and I need you with me. Perhaps it is admitting that your current coping strategy is no longer helping. Whatever the hard step is, do not wait for fear to disappear before you take it. You can say, I am afraid, and I am still going. That is Psalm 56 verse 3, lived out in ordinary life. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Not after fear, during fear. Trust changes the direction of your next step, even when it does not instantly change the chemistry of your body. Now, there is an objection we need to face without softening it. What if the feared event really could happen? What if the test could be concerning? What if the job decision could go against you? What if the relationship conversation could reveal something painful? What if the letter could contain a difficult demand? What if the person you love could be struggling? Then wise preparation matters. You may need questions, you may need a ride, you may need documents. You may need a second opinion, you may need someone to take notes, you may need a budget conversation, you may need legal counsel, you may need to clear part of your schedule, you may need a safety plan, you may need to ask what resources are available. That is not negative thinking. That is responsible preparation based on a realistic possibility. But there is a line. Wise preparation creates options. Catastrophic rehearsal creates suffering without options. Wise preparation has an endpoint. Once the questions are written, the documents are gathered, the appointment is scheduled, and the support is arranged, you can stop for now. Catastrophic rehearsal has no endpoint because its goal is impossible. It is trying to make uncertainty disappear through thought. Wise preparation asks, what would help if this happens? Catastrophic rehearsal asks, can I mentally suffer enough now to guarantee I will not be hurt later? You cannot. No amount of previewing pain makes you invulnerable to pain. But you can become more supported, more informed, more grounded, and more willing to ask for help. That is real preparation. Now let us go deeper. Sometimes fear of bad news is not only fear of the event. It is fear of the identity you think the event will give you. If the diagnosis is real, I become a sick person. If the job ends, I become a failure. If this relationship changes, I become unwanted. If the financial news is hard, I become irresponsible. If my loved one is struggling, I become powerless. If the answer is no, I become forgotten. These are not facts, they are identity conclusions. A hard event can change your responsibilities. It can change your plans. It can require grief. It can create limits. It can expose losses you did not want. But no event has the authority to define the total meaning of who you are. You are more than the news you receive. You are not a notification. You are not a test result. You are not a decision letter. You are not someone else's answer. You are not the number in an account. You are not a single conversation. Your identity is not a document that fear gets to edit whenever uncertainty appears. This is where the future, written by fear, becomes especially cruel. Fear does not merely predict events, it predicts what those events will prove about you. Challenge that. Ask, if this difficult thing happens, what am I assuming it will mean about me? Then separate event from identity. A rejection can hurt without proving you are worthless. A diagnosis can be serious without becoming your entire name. A financial setback can require change without becoming a moral verdict on your whole life. A relationship loss can grieve you without proving you are unlovable. A family crisis can demand action without proving you caused everything. This separation gives you room to respond to the event itself, instead of defending against an identity sentence fear invented. You may not be able to control the news. You can refuse to let it become your master definition. That is another form of courage. Now make this concrete. Choose the hard step. not every step. 1. If there is a message you need to open, choose when and where you will open it. If there is a call you need to return, write the first sentence and make the call. If there is an appointment you have been avoiding, schedule it. If there is a question you need to ask a qualified person, write it down and send it. If you need support, contact one person with a specific request. If anxiety is persistent or severe, identify one qualified mental health resource and make one move toward connection. Do not wait for your body to vote unanimously. You may still feel afraid when you act. Let that be allowed. You can carry courage in trembling hands. Now create one ongoing limit so fear does not reclaim the entire day. Choose a boundary around checking, reassurance seeking, or mental rehearsal. Make it realistic enough to keep. If you keep reopening the same source, decide the conditions under which you will check again. If you keep searching, write down what question you are actually trying to answer and choose one qualified source. If you keep asking people for reassurance, decide who your 1 or 2 grounded support people will be and what kind of support you will request. If your mind rehearses the feared conversation, give yourself a brief preparation window, write what is useful, and then return to the present task. The boundary is not punishment. It is a way of protecting your attention from a strategy that has stopped helping. There will be moments when you break the boundary. Do not turn that into shame. Notice it. Return. Steadiness is return. Trust is return. Courage is return. You do not need a perfect record for the practice to matter. And when the news finally arrives, remember the sequence. First, receive the facts. Second, notice the story fear immediately adds. Third, separate the facts from the story. Fourth, ask what response is actually required. Fifth, invite support where it belongs. Sixth, allow yourself to feel, without demanding that feeling become a forecast. You do not have to solve the entire future in the first 5 minutes after receiving difficult information. If the news is complex, ask for clarity. If the news is serious, ask what the next step is. If the news affects your health, work with qualified medical care. If it affects legal rights or obligations, seek qualified legal counsel. If it affects finances, get responsible financial guidance and deal with the actual numbers. If it affects safety, prioritize safety. If it affects your mental health in a persistent or severe way, seek qualified support. Prayer does not compete with these actions. Prayer can help you carry them without making fear your Lord. And if the news is not as bad as you feared, learn from that too. Do not merely say, "I worried for nothing," and then repeat the same cycle next time. Notice how convincing fear felt. Notice how your body treated prediction as fact. Notice which coping strategies made the waiting worse. Notice which practices helped you stay present. Let the experience teach you. Your goal is not to prove that fear is always wrong about events. Sometimes feared events do happen. Your goal is to stop treating fear as the only trustworthy interpreter of events. Fear may identify a risk. It cannot tell you the whole meaning of your life. Fear may say, "This will be hard." It cannot say, "Therefore you will have no help." Fear may say, "You could lose something." It cannot say, "Therefore nothing remains." Fear may say, "You do not know." It cannot honestly say, "Therefore the ending is ruined." That is the sentence I want you to stop accepting. The future is not already ruined because it feels uncertain. Uncertainty is a condition of not knowing. Ruin is a conclusion. Do not confuse them. The mind can feel relief when language becomes accurate. Instead of, "Everything is going to fall apart," say, "I am afraid of a specific outcome." Instead of, "I cannot handle this," say, "I do not yet know what support I would need." Instead of, "I have to know now," say, "I want certainty, but I may need to act without it." Instead of, "Worrying keeps me prepared," say, "Preparation has a limit. Rehearsal does not." Instead of, "If I am still afraid, I am failing," say, "Fear can be present while I choose the next faithful action." Accurate language does not remove pain. It removes exaggerations that make pain harder to carry. Now I want to return to the question of certainty, because this is where many people go back to the old strategy. What if you cannot get certainty before you must act? Maybe you have to make a decision with incomplete information. Maybe you have to attend the meeting without knowing what will be said. Maybe you have to approve one step while waiting for another result. Maybe you have to ask a difficult question without knowing how the person will respond. Maybe there is no perfect option. Fear will tell you, do nothing until you know enough to eliminate risk. But sometimes there is no risk-free choice. Maturity is not always certainty before movement. Sometimes maturity is making the wisest available decision with the information you actually have, while remaining willing to adjust. That requires humility. You can ask, what do I know? What do I not know? What truly needs a decision now? What can wait? What values should guide me if certainty is unavailable? Who has the expertise to help? What would be a reversible next step? What would create unnecessary harm if I delay? These questions are better than, how do I guarantee I will not regret this? You cannot guarantee that. The desire for a regret-proof decision can keep you frozen long after action becomes necessary. And if you return to the old strategy now, notice the cost. You will demand one more search, one more opinion, one more sign, one more internal feeling before you move. Every new piece of information will create another question. The finish line will move, because the real goal is not information. The real goal is total certainty. Total certainty may never come. So the cost of returning is not simply more worry. It is delayed life, delayed calls, delayed care, delayed conversations, delayed decisions, delayed boundaries, delayed help, delayed rest. Fear says delay is protection. Sometimes delay increases the very difficulty you are trying to avoid. This is why taking the hard step while afraid is not merely motivational language. It is a practical interruption of the cycle. You are teaching your mind, I can act without the feeling of certainty. You are teaching your body, fear can rise and I do not have to obey every instruction it gives. You are teaching your relationships, I can ask for support without demanding prediction. You are teaching your faith, trust is a direction, not a sensation. I want you to think again about the phone, the envelope, the portal, the calendar, the unanswered question. At the beginning, fear wanted those objects to become symbols of a completed disaster. Now let them become something else. A doorway to facts. A place where the next responsibility becomes visible. A moment where you practice courage with trembling hands. The object itself does not contain your whole future. It contains information. You can receive information without surrendering your identity. You can receive information without predicting every consequence in the same moment. You can receive information and take the next step. This is how the ending returns to its proper place. You do not write it in advance. You live faithfully into what becomes true. There may be grief. There may be relief. There may be a complicated mixture. There may be more waiting. There may be decisions you did not want. There may be support you did not know you needed. There may be questions that take time. I will not promise you a painless road. I will promise you this, within the truth of who I am, you do not have to make fear your guide in order to take reality seriously. Come back to Psalm 56 verse 3. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. The verse begins where you are, not where you wish you were. When I am afraid, not when I have certainty, not when my body is calm, not when the answer is favorable. When I am afraid, then direction. I put my trust in you. That is the movement. Fear names the condition. Trust chooses the direction. Your next step can carry both. You can tremble and trust. You can cry and ask the question. You can feel anxious and go to the appointment. You can want certainty and still choose wisdom. You can be disappointed and still receive support. You can grieve and still belong to my Father. You can face hard information and refuse to let it become the final definition of your life. This is not weakness. This is faithful courage. Before we pray, I want you to make 3 quiet decisions. First, Name the hard step you have been postponing, because you wanted fear to disappear first. Second, name the control strategy you will limit: checking, reassurance seeking, searching, or mental rehearsal. Third, name one person or qualified resource you can involve if the fear is too heavy to carry alone. Keep the decision specific. Not, "I will stop worrying." Try, "I will open the message with my sister beside me." Not, "I will trust more." Try, "I will make the appointment even though I feel afraid." Not, "I will stop overthinking." Try, "I will check once after the expected update time and then return to my planned task." Not, "I will be stronger." Try, "I will ask the professional what is known, what is not known, and what needs to happen next." Specific courage is easier to practice than vague courage. And when your mind says, "But what if?" do not insult the question. Answer it with responsibility. What if the news is difficult? Then I will receive the facts and ask for the next step. What if I feel overwhelmed? Then I will pause, breathe, ask for support, and request clarity. What if I cannot get certainty? Then I will make the wisest available decision with the information I have. What if fear comes back? Then I will return. Return to what is known. Return to the next responsibility. Return to wise support. Return to my Father's care. Return to trust. The power is not in never leaving the present. The power is in learning the way back. Now, let me lead you in prayer. My Father, I bring before you the person who is afraid of news they have not yet received. You see the phone they hesitate to answer, the message they fear opening, the appointment they dread, the decision they cannot control, and the question that has followed them through ordinary moments. You know what is fact, what is possibility, and what fear has added. Meet them in that exact place without shame. My Father, let them tell you the truth. They are afraid. They may not feel brave. Their body may be tense, their sleep may be broken, and their mind may be rehearsing endings they do not want. Let them discover that honesty is not unbelief. As David prayed, when fear is present, let trust become the direction of the next step. Take from their hands the impossible job of predicting everything. They cannot know every outcome. They cannot protect themselves by mentally suffering through every possible future. Help them release the belief that constant worry proves love, responsibility, or faithfulness. Give them permission to stop rehearsing when useful preparation is complete. Give them wisdom for what is truly theirs to do. If there is a message to open, give courage to open it. If there is a call to return, help them return it. If there is an appointment to keep, strengthen them to go. If there are questions to ask, help them ask clearly. If they need qualified medical, mental health, legal, financial, or other professional support, give them humility and clarity to seek it. My Father, teach them the difference between preparation and possession. Let them gather what is useful without carrying what has not happened. Let them make plans without turning plans into predictions. Let them choose support without demanding impossible reassurance. Let them set limits on checking, searching, and mental rehearsal. And when anxiety protests, help them return without condemning themselves. Where old pain is making the present uncertainty louder, bring gentleness. Where past bad news trained them to expect disaster, help them honor what they have survived without making the past the author of every unknown. Give them wise care for wounds that need more support than private endurance. Steady their attention. When the mind races toward catastrophe, bring them back to what is known. When the body sounds an alarm, help them remember that a feeling can be real without being a forecast. When they want certainty before movement, give them courage with trembling hands. If the feared news becomes reality, do not let them confuse a hard event with a total identity. Guard them from naming themselves by a diagnosis, a rejection, a financial setback, a relationship change, a decision, or another person's response. Help them face what is true without adding a verdict about their worth. Give them companions who can stay present instead of pretending to know the ending. Give them words to ask for the help they actually need. Protect their relationships from becoming endless reassurance loops. Teach them to let others be companions, not profits. Where action is required, give discernment. Where waiting is required, give patience. Where grief is required, give room for grief. Where a boundary is required, give courage. Where support is required, help them receive it. Where no action is possible yet, teach them the faithful work of not carrying tomorrow before it arrives. My Father, keep their mind returning to you. Not because they can force themselves into perfect calm, but because trust can be practiced through return. When fear comes back, let them return to truth. When uncertainty rises, let them return to the next responsibility. When the future feels ruined, remind them that uncertainty is not a verdict. Let them stop asking fear to write the ending. Give them enough light for the step they actually have, enough courage to receive facts, enough humility to ask questions, enough patience to wait when waiting is necessary, enough wisdom to seek qualified help, enough steadiness to rest when preparation is complete. And when they stand before the phone, the message, the portal, the envelope, the appointment, or the conversation they have feared, remind them that they do not need a fearless body in order to take a faithful step. Let their hands tremble if they must. Let courage still move. I entrust what they cannot know to Prover, you. I ask for no false guarantee, only faithful presence, wise direction, and strength for what becomes real. Hold them close to truth. Keep them from prediction that masquerades as preparation. Lead them into patience, faithfulness, and trust beyond what they can foresee. My Father, let peace be practiced one return at a time. Let this person receive what is true, do what is theirs, seek the help they need, and release what is not theirs to control. In the uncertainty, keep them anchored in your care. Amen. If this message helped you name the fear you are carrying, share one next faithful step in the comments if you wish. Subscribe for more scripture-grounded devotional messages and prayers for real-life pressure, courage, and trust.